The Sixers open up the Miami Heat series down 2 games with the absence of Joel Embiid. The Phillies, well, their bats are quite literally dead. And the Eagles, Howie Roseman pulled some Howie magic on draft night. All that come to you on Sports Talk Philadelphia. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the last and final episode of Sports Talk Philadelphia for this season. I'm your host, Cale Flieger. I'm joined by my usual panel, my co-producer, Aiden Cisinski. Aiden, how we doing?
Much better than anyone who's part of the Phillies or Sixers right now.
And Matt Dorenzo.
Yeah, I'm doing well. Can't be too happy after the Sixers down 0-2.
Yeah, not a lot is going on well in the Philadelphia sports world at the moment. We are going to start with the Philadelphia 76ers as they did open up the series against the Miami Heat. Big news came out before the series started that Joel Embiid would be out for unseeable future with an orbital fracture in his right eye and also a concussion. He's in concussion protocol. He missed games 1 and 2 so far with this injury, and the Sixers have dropped 2 in a row the first 2 games of the series. Lost the first game 106-92, where they were up by 1 point at halftime, but just completely fell apart in the second half. And then they lost game 2, 119-103, where it seemed like the Miami Heat just had control the entire game, and the Sixers didn't really have a shot at winning that game either. The Sixers do come back to Philadelphia now for game 3, a crucial game 3. If they go down 3-0, the series is obviously over. Overall, what are your guys' thoughts to the Sixers being down 0-2 right now? I mean, obviously, it's a big blow not having Joel Embiid on the court right now, but obviously just James Harden not stepping up overall. A lot of problems right now for the Sixers.
Yeah, so I said last week that this was a series the Sixers aren't going to win, and that was before Embiid got hurt. So once he was out, I knew that the series was done, and it's looked done since the second half of Game 1. 2 key people that just have not been playing well. One's Danny Green. Last night shot 1 for 10 from the field, 1 of 9 from 3. Seriously let the Sixers down from the 3-point shooting, which the Sixers don't really have to begin with. And the other guy's DeAndre Jordan, who should not be getting any minutes at all, and yet Doc Rivers decided that this is going to be his guy to replace Joel Embiid. Well, he had a minus 22 in 17 minutes played in Game 1. The only other players to have a minus over 20 was Tyrese Maxey and Tobias Harris, and they played nearly half more minutes than DeAndre Jordan did. So there's 2 guys that should not be playing at all, and for some reason Doc Rivers is deciding these are the guys that he's going to go with, and it seems like that's the hill that he's going to have to die on because the Sixers aren't going to come back.
I mean, yeah, starting 0-2 in a series against probably one of the best teams in basketball is never really good, but I'm looking at it as an optimist. Ready? They're the home team. They're supposed to win 2 games and win the series. They're supposed to go 2-2, 1-1-1. So even without your MVP star, very concerning how you're up at halftime and you just completely collapse in Game 1. And Game 2, trying to have some momentum going in to come back home and you still lose by 16 points. But in those 2 games, I think we shot like 12 for 54 combined, and we only lost by 12 points. We're there without our MVP star. If we just keep playing our basketball, those shots will fall, and B comes back. We're down 0-2 now. I almost guarantee he plays at home, and I'm worried, but I think we have a good chance to bounce back in Game 3.
Yeah, it is a good point, Matt. I mean, this Heat, they are supposed to handle business. They're at home without the MVP of the NBA on the court. I mean, you're supposed to handle business to win those 2 games. So looking forward, I mean, the Sixers, hopefully Joel Embiid comes back for Game 3 at home. He hasn't passed concussion protocol yet. We will see. But obviously, it's a must-win game for the Sixers. I mean, if you go down 3-0, no team has came back from 3-0. So obviously, Sixers' chances are very slim. If Embiid comes back, very big for the Sixers. I mean, obviously, we've seen he's played with a mask before 2 years ago against the Boston Celtics in the playoffs. He didn't play great, but just having his presence on the court opens up a lot for the Sixers. Do you guys think the Sixers could pull off a Game 3 win with Joel Embiid back on the court?
I absolutely think they do. Just his presence, him coming back out of the tunnel wearing that mask back in Wells Fargo Center, I really think the team builds on that momentum, builds on that energy. And like, if we can drop 2 games to the Raptors, he can drop 2 games to us. Especially we're at home. I mean, 2 years ago we were like 21-0 at home. If we had that same crowd, the same energy, especially after going down 0-2 and a B coming back, I really think like the Sixers chance to win this game.
Yeah, Matt, I do like the point that the Sixers played really well at home. Historically, this year they struggled a lot. And that's something that they're really going to have to figure out for this game. Because like Caleb, you said, going down 3-0, no NBA team has ever come back for them. And few teams in North American sports history have ever done it, period. So it's going to be really hard for the Sixers to do that. I feel like they could win at least one of these games, go down 3-1. It could possibly bring them a little bit of momentum if they win that game 4, if they don't win game 3. But that's going to be a really tough comeback. So they have to win game 3. I don't know if they're going to be able to just because Embiid's still not going to be healthy, but I guess we'll see.
I do want to jump back to Joel Embiid's injury. Obviously, he got that injury, concussion, and orbital fracture the last game of the Toronto Raptors series with 4 minutes to go in the game, up by 20-plus points. And so for some reason, Joel Embiid was still in the game. He still has that tear in the right ligament in his thumb. So obviously, he's already injured. Many fans were wondering why Doc Rivers still had him in the game. Did that kind of confuse you guys? And obviously, it's just bad karma. I mean, it seems like this happens every single year to Joel Embiid when the time matters the most.
Well, the whole situation around this injury is so frustrating. One, Embiid should not have been playing. Two, that elbow by Siakam, there was absolutely no reason for that. He had an easy layup. He could have just gone for the foul. Instead, he throws an elbow. And three, the response by Raptors fans and the Raptors broadcasters was completely ridiculous. They kept saying that there was karma for this, that Embiid deserved to get hurt. No player deserves to get hurt. If that's the way that you're going to broadcast and that's the way that you want your fans to react, then you deserve to lose that game. A little bit of a callback to the way the broadcasters acted to Embiid's injury. But yes, there's no reason that Embiid should have been playing in that situation. He should have been out. And this is another reason why Doc Rivers' management has to be called into question at the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, up 29 points, like Caleb said. He already has that thumb injury. He already has that injury, and we all know his past. He's been very good this year, but he's injury prone. And with 3 minutes left in the game, up 29, like, there's really no excuse why he's still in the basketball game, especially when you have a guy like Paul Reed who's been playing well against Raptors all series. Like, Doc did come out, we kept him in because the Raptors had their main guys in. Well, the Raptors, they were down 29 points at home fighting for a playoff spot. They're going to get their main guys in. At that point, we're looking forward to the next series. So, in the end, I'm just really upset how Doc's not taking accountability for it. As a head coach of the league, you're sorry being that late in the game, getting hurt. It's on Doc.
Yeah, we also have to look at the Sixers' struggles within the bench of recently. I mean, you can look in the first series, the Sixers bench looked great. Georges Niang was coming off the bench, shooting threes. Shake Milton was putting in good minutes. But you look in now to this series, I mean, Georges Niang is 1 for 12 now from the floor for the series. He fouled out last game just in 10 minutes for the Sixers. Didn't make any shots in the first game, and he's a crucial player to our three-point shooting success and obviously overall success on the offensive end of the court. So far, obviously having the bench not playing up to standards, do you think this is the biggest reason why the Sixers are struggling the most right now?
Obviously. I mean, our bench is awful. Going into the playoffs, we had the hope of like maybe we'll see like Jonathan Jordan shine. Maybe we'll see Cork Maz and all those guys come in and so they can be basketball players. But no, you're coming off the bench to play defense and shoot the ball. They're missing threes. They're letting guys go by them with defense. So at that point in the game, I'd rather have myself out there playing basketball than them. Because I know I can give myself a few shots. 6 for 36 to two games, I'm getting at least 4 of them.
So when you look at the Bucks, the Celtics, and the Heat, the 3 best teams in the East as of right now, they have a rotation off the bench. They're 3 main guys and a few other guys. But basically, they have 3 guys that they rely on to score off the bench the most. The Sixers do not have that rotation, and that's on Doc Rivers. He knew that the moment that he traded for James Harden that he had to figure out a rotation off the bench for the playoffs. You have to find those 3 guys, whether it be Korkmaz, Thibault, whoever. He has not figured that out, and it looks like he is lost trying to find that rotation in the middle of the playoffs. That is not acceptable for a head coach who's supposed to be one of the best in playoff basketball history. So that's really, again, on Doc Rivers, not figuring out this team, and it's causing huge problems right now.
Yeah, Doc Rivers obviously struggling again on the coaching end, obviously getting out-coached by Eric Spoelstra, the Miami Heat coach, just not looking good for the Sixers overall. And we have to hope that somehow they can turn this thing around because it can't get any worse than it has been. A 16-point loss and a 14-point loss is unacceptable to have in the first round. We are going to look into the other Eastern Conference playoff series. It's the Milwaukee Bucks and the Boston Celtics. Tied 1-1 now, a very good series. You saw the first game, the Bucks without Chris Middleton shocked the Boston Celtics at home. Now it's tied 1-1. Who do you guys see coming out of that series?
That's going to be a tough one. I want to go Bucks just because they won last year and they have great players. Giannis, you have Chris Middleton, as you brought up. But man, this Celtics team just looked like they're on a roll. They first of all swept the Nets, who everyone thought was going to finally get it together in the playoffs, and they just didn't. And they've looked really, really solid up to this point. So at this point, I'm going to go Celtics winning that series.
I mean, when it comes down to it, Giannis is the best player in that series. Giannis is the Finals MVP. Giannis is the Defensive Player of the Year. I know Chris Paul's not playing, but they did steal a game in Boston. And Marcus Smart with that shoulder injury, I don't know how he's going to be. So I like the Bucks to come out. I like the Bucks to repeat overall.
Yeah, definitely. The Milwaukee Bucks have a very talented roster, but like Aiden said, the Boston Celtics have been on a roll at the end of the year and swept the Brooklyn Nets. So two very good teams going at it there. That's all we got for Philadelphia 76ers. We are going to move on to the Phillies, who have not been very good lately. As they broke that losing streak in series. They won against the Rockies, and then they went right back on it. As they lost to the Mets 1-2, and then lost to the Rangers 2-0 at home, which is just unacceptable there. In the Mets series, the Phillies did get no hit in one of the games. Obviously, the bats just have been awful overall. The Phillies now dropped to 11-14 on the series. They are facing the Mets coming up here in this next series, but overall, guys, I mean, start with the Mets series. Just how bad was that?
It's so frustrating coming off because the series before you sweep the Rockies in 4 games, and then you go play the Mets with momentum and you get no hit, and it's just really frustrating because in that 9th inning we had Harper, Castellanos, and Realmuto, 3 of our arguably best hitters, 3 All-Stars, and they 1-2-3 strikeout, and it was just like no fight at all. And after losing that first series in the match, you're like, okay, they're the better team. But now you have to bounce back and probably steal 2 out of 3, maybe sweep them all, or they're going to run away with it. Right now, the Mets running with the division. It's really scary for Phillies fans.
So the last time the Phillies got no hit was in 2014. I can honestly not name the entire starting 9 for that Phillies team because that was one of the first years or second years that they had 90-plus losses. Just an awful Phillies team overall that started that trend of the rebuild. This is not acceptable considering how much money that was spent on this team. The fact that this is supposed to be one of the best offenses in baseball to be the first team of the entire season to get no hit. It is not good at all, especially to the Mets, who's a division rival, who you have been saying this entire offseason, hey, we're going to compete for the division. We're going to compete for the division. Well, obviously you're not if you're going to get no hit by the Mets and then end up losing that series. And then on top of that, getting swept by the Rangers, who are in last place and one of the worst teams in the entire American League. This is not looking good for the Phillies, and it's no longer acceptable to say that it's early in the season. We're now nearly a month in at this point. You've got to figure it out.
Yeah, a lot of question marks around the Phillies organization right now. You got to start looking at the general manager, George Girardi. I mean, you look at, like Aiden said, he spent a lot of money this past offseason with the bats, with the pitching, and it's just not looking good so far. I mean, it's just unacceptable. I mean, I think one of the biggest Phillies' weaknesses right now is the leadoff position for hitting. I mean, you look at their overall collective group at the leadoff spot is batting 172. Just overall awful position. I mean, your best person to put right there is Kyle Schwarber, but he's either a home run hitter or a strikeout hitter, so his average is not high. I mean, what area can you see the Phillies going in to kind of fix that leadoff spot? I mean, it's a big, big hole for the Phillies right now.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a great answer to that at this point. I think, though, that George Girardi, he has to feel the heat coming on at this point. Because the Phillies, for the first time in franchise history, went over the luxury tax. Dombrowski was brought in to make big moves, and he did that. So at this point, it's up to the manager to get this thing right. And at this point, Joe Girardi has a losing record for his time as a Phillies manager. That was not something that was going to be acceptable, considering that they made all these big moves for him. Bringing in Harper was going to be a move that was going to be for him. The Zach Wheeler move happened his first year. That should have been a key sign that he needed to make the playoffs his first 3 years. And if they don't turn it around right now, they still have some time before you get to Memorial Day, which is when standings really start to count. That's when you've got to decide, is this the manager for the rest of the year, or are we going to make a quick change?
Yeah, I mean, like Aiden said, there really is no answer right now. We saw Schwarber. He really struggles batting under 200. Last night, Alec Boehm got the nod for the leadoff, and he's been hitting really well. But even last night, you saw him struggle. Just the leadoff position is completely different. Going forward, I'd like to have a guy like Gene there. I mean, we all know Gene can bat over 300. We know Gene's been a Philly guy for a while. Just to see what he can do. Just keep him there, not one game, and then if he struggles, take him out. Like, you need to have a guy consistently being there for 5-10 games and see what he can do to actually get a whole reasonable what he can do at leadoff spot.
Yeah, Joe Girardi even tried Alec Boehm last night at DH, not at DH, at leadoff spot. Did not do very well, though. Started 0 for 4, but Alec Boehm has been very successful at the plate this season so far. We are going to jump to the NL East standings right now as the Phillies are in 4th place in NL East. They're 6 games back from first place from the Mets, who currently one of the best teams in the MLB right now. Overall, it's just not looking good for the Phillies, like Aiden said. We're a month and a half now into the season. It's kind of the excuse is gone for it's kind of too early. The Phillies, though, do have a crucial 4-game series coming up against the Mets at home. Could kind of jump back in this thing if you can win this series. Overall, we have Aaron Nola on the mound tonight. Looking good for us there. What do you guys expect in this series? I mean, obviously, we really need to win this series to bounce back here.
I mean, just frankly speaking, we're going to get swept. If we can't hit any ball, like our pitchers, we can go 8 innings. Like last night, exactly we won 7 innings, no runs, like 6 hits. We lost in 10. Our pitchers can go throw as much gems as they want, but it really comes out hitting. If you're not scoring any runs, you're not winning any ball game. And like the past 25 games, I was just guessing. I want to say we didn't score 0 runs in about 6 or 7 of them. And going over the luxury tax, doing all we did in the offseason, just can't happen if you want to expect to win the division against the Mets.
If the Phillies want to win this series, they have to get the Mets starting pitcher out as soon as possible. These guys have been really good. The highest ERA rate of all of them is a 3.6. So if you get those out, get it to the bullpen, you're going to have a shot. But you got to do that really early on.
Yeah, very crucial series coming up for the Phillies. They do play tonight. Aaron Nola on the mound, so hopefully they can start off on the right foot and get up 1 game here on the Mets. That's all we have for the Phillies. We are going to jump to the Philadelphia Eagles, though, as they had a very successful draft night in the view of a lot of people. So we're going to start off at the first pick they had. They traded up from 15 to 12. They drafted defensive tackle Jordan Davis from Georgia. Obviously, he's 6'6", 350 pounds. Obviously, just a type of you don't see a lot in the draft, his specimen, the way he moves and all that. So great pick there for Howie Roseman. And then another shocking surprise I don't think a lot of people saw happening was when the Eagles were about to be on the clock at the number 18th overall pick, they did trade that pick for Tennessee Titans star wide receiver A.J. Brown, who's 24 years old, best friends with Jalen Hurts. It just seemed kind of too good to be true for Philadelphia Eagles fans. And then we even got Nakobe Dean in the 3rd round where he was viewed as a top 20 talent coming into this draft. So overall, just a very successful draft for the Eagles. I don't think you could be happier. I mean, a lot of people say maybe you could have drafted Kyle Hamilton over Jordan Davis. But Jordan Davis, I think he's going to be a great player. With the way Fletcher Cox is getting older now, definitely a great replacement for that defensive line. And a guy who can be here for the next 10 years possibly. So overall, what is your guys' overall reaction? We'll start with the Jordan Davis pick.
So for Jordan Davis, I feel like Howie Roseman with that pick went for the best player available. Obviously, we talked about needs that they want. Ahmad Gardner, quarterback, would have been great. Jameson Williams or Chris Olive at wide receiver would have been great. All 3 of those guys were out the board. So Howie Roseman was like, basically what I think he was looking at was who is the best player available now that those guys that we could have needed are off. And Jordan Davis is the best player available physically wise, a great defensive guy that you can put in at tackle to take Fletcher off for a break. And so that was a great pick by Howie, and I think that he totally nailed it.
Hey, I mean, Jordan Davis is like the one more time is an absolute specimen. For a man to run that fast at his size, national champion, has the experience of winning, great attitude all around, great guy. You saw his post-game promises. He must be called DJ Oreo now. Just amazing personality, great for Philly. But Howie, like you saw those 3 receivers got the board. He traded up in front of Baltimore. Everybody's saying, oh, we could have took Kyle Hamilton, but the Ravens would have taken Jordan Davis over Kyle Hamilton as well. So Howie doing what he does best, leaping another team, getting the guy we wanted, and overall I think that's a really nice win at defensive tackle.
Yeah, exactly like Matt said, the Eagles got the guy they wanted. Obviously, the Eagles had their eye on this Jordan Davis for a while now, and they made it happen as they traded up from 15 to 12 to make it happen. We are going to go to the A.J. Brown trade now. Big news, kind of was the talk of the night for the NFL draft pretty much. Eagles traded that number 18th overall pick and I believe a third round pick for A.J. Brown. Obviously 24 years old, former Pro Bowl wide receiver, 2,000 yards receiving. He had a couple injury problems last year, but overall just a great wide receiver. Complements Devontae Smith, awesome. I mean, he's just the perfect complement. I mean, Devontae Smith is more down the field where A.J. Brown, he can get you those number 1 wide receiver type productivity. So overall, what is your guys' reaction to getting A.J. Brown? I mean, kind of seems too good to be true because this is probably the best wide receiver the Eagles have had since Terrell Owens.
Yeah, I mean, on draft night, I was upset that Olave, Williams, and Wilson, they all went earlier. But then I checked my phone and it said, Eagles trade for A.J. Brown. I was like, ha, funny, good joke. Like, no shot how we would ever do that, something like that. But I look at it again, and then it goes on the TV. There's been a trade of like, oh, reality started sinking in a little bit. Howie Roseman just doing what Howie does. I said a few weeks ago on the show, Howie, every once in a while, he puts those things out there. You're like, oh my God, Howie Roseman's a great GM. But now Howie Roseman just probably saved the job for another 10 years. Getting A.J. Brown, we inked him to a full-year deal, $100 million. great young superstar in the league, only 24 years old. I think it's going to be a great piece for Jalen Hurts going forward.
So I think one of the biggest criticisms of Howie Roseman hasn't necessarily been his drafting overall. It's him drafting wide receivers. It's something that he has struggled at a lot. So the fact that he didn't have to do that he could say, hey, I'm just going to go trade for this guy who's already a star, who I don't have to try to draft, who I definitely won't get criticized for if he doesn't play well, because it's on him not performing rather than me drafting someone who was going to get compared to another guy who I could have drafted instead. It was a smart move by Howie Roseman, a second great move in the first round, and one, like Matt said, is going to let him keep his job for a while.
So obviously, a lot of success for Howie Roseman on day one of the NFL draft. Going to day 2 and 3, I mean, Howie Roseman still killed it into the draft. I mean, day 2 with the 53rd overall pick, the Eagles did draft center Cam Jurgens, a great replacement for Jason Kelce in the future. Jason Kelce even said that scouting for the past couple of years, this is probably the best center that reflects his play and that he's seen. So obviously, great replacement there. And then obviously, getting Nakobe Dean, linebacker, who a lot of Eagles fans wanted us to draft in the first round, ended up falling all the way to the 3rd round. And another thing that just seems too good to be true, a talent like that falling all the way to the 3rd round, and we got him with the value we did. I mean, what is your guys' reaction to that pick?
It's on Jalen Hurts this year. The pressure is on right now. It was already on him a week ago when we thought that we would be drafting one of these high-end wide receivers in the first round. But now we've stacked up the defense with 2 great draft picks from Georgia. We now got you that star wide receiver who's already very established in the NFL. The team is set to win right now, which is not something I thought 2 years ago when this team was one of the worst in the NFL. So Jalen Hurts has got to step up, or else he's not going to be here at the end of this year.
Yeah, Aiden couldn't have said it any better. How he got all the pieces to go around Jalen Hurts, got all the defense we needed. It always comes down to how good your quarterback does, and I really think Jalen Hurts is going to show us a lot this season.
Yeah, obviously just a big draft night for the Eagles. We really need this after a slow kind of offseason, only really getting Hassan Reddick and Zach Pascal, so kind of slow there, but obviously just a big draft night where I think a lot of people give them an A+ for the job they did that night. That's all we have for the Eagles. Probably best talk of the day so far there, but we are going to move to Fast 5, and Aiden's going to take over this one.
Yeah, so if those of you who don't know, Caleb is graduating at the end of this year, so this will be officially his last show hosting Sports Talk Philadelphia. So I thought we'd give him a chance to tell the viewers a little bit about him sports-wise. So the first question we have for Caleb is, Caleb, what is your favorite Philadelphia sports team?
Yeah, so definitely going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles. Probably the people who watch this show see we talk about the Eagles a lot through the past 2 semesters I've hosted. So definitely the Eagles, just the way that the sport of football kind of is never ending with the offseason, even in season. So definitely the Eagles.
All right, Matt, do you want to take the next question?
Yeah, Caleb, what is your favorite player? I got 4 options here: Embiid, Harper, Hurts, or Hart, or maybe even another one.
I'll definitely go with Joel Embiid, just because you got to look at when I started watching Philadelphia 76ers basketball, it was the start of the process. Joel Embiid was drafted, wasn't able to see him play for 2 years. He came into the league and just dominated, and it's been awesome to see kind of just the growth of the player he's turned into. Seeing him get drafted on draft night and just how young he was to the pretty much the player he is now, MVP on the court, kind of the talk of the NBA is pretty cool to watch. So definitely Joel Embiid.
Yeah, the third one we have is, do you have a favorite sports moment that happened while you were part of this show?
Yeah, definitely. Don't have to think hard about this one. It's definitely got to be the Ben Simmons trade. Definitely hosting the show. A lot of the scripts I was writing pretty much every week was Ben Simmons talk. Will Ben Simmons get traded? It was pretty much the talk of the show for probably a lot of months. And it was kind of a relief when you saw the trade go through that we got James Harden. It's kind of like, oh, we can talk about something different now in SportsTalk Philadelphia. So definitely it was great to see that type of news. I mean, just the drama that was built with that and what we had to talk about is definitely kind of never seen before stuff in the sports world. So that was definitely a good sports moment there.
All right, a fourth one for you. What has been your most memorable segment on the show so far?
Most memorable segment, I would definitely go with when John Kohlmeyer was producing. I was his co-producer, and we kind of came up with the Fast 5 section in Sports Talk Philadelphia. And I think it's kind of cool to see that it's kind of stuck with the show for this long now. I mean, I think it's a great part to add to the show. It kind of switches the topic off of just Philadelphia sports, and you can kind of talk about different stuff that's happening all around the sports world, no matter what type of sports it is. So I think that was a pretty cool segment that I've experienced.
Yeah. So we still got a little bit of time left. Obviously, you came in the middle of the pandemic. had to work through it virtually, the show virtually at first, worked your way up to finally producing it. Do you have any last remarks, people you want to thank? Obviously, you have plenty of time to do that. So.
Yeah, definitely. I want to thank a lot of people. I mean, obviously Tanya, Josh Abrams for bringing me on the show at first as a transfer sophomore. I mean, being on the show, it was in person at first on the panel, but obviously when COVID hit, it pushed us online. Thankfully, we're still able to do somewhat of Sports Talk Philadelphia working on Zoom. Obviously, it was different, not being in the studio, not having kind of that real world feel to it, but obviously we're still able to do our thing and talk Philadelphia sports, so that was thankfully a good thing. But obviously when we got back in the studio, when COVID kind of settled down, I was thankful to be a producer. I mean, I've learned a lot through these real world experiences, and it's been a great time talking about Philadelphia sports because one of my passions is overall just great working with you guys. Overall, I know the show is definitely in good hands, and definitely looking forward to future shows, watching you guys do your thing.
Yeah, no, it's definitely been fun working last year. Definitely weird with me being the virtual guest and you on the seat. Was that something that, like, just working through that, you want to talk a little bit more about what that experience was like?
Yeah, it's kind of just crazy. I mean, you look at the way we kind of transitioned. I mean, we're going virtually, and then at one point we had Aiden over on a separate desk. We weren't even all able to sit on the same desk. 2 people on this desk, 2 people on that desk. So kind of just, it taught you to be flexible. I mean, throughout the whole pandemic, it really taught people to kind of adapt in a way that you just have to make things work. So we definitely made things work, and I think that was kind of one of the cool things that we had for our shows. We always made it work, and we produced a lot of episodes this semester, no matter what the circumstances were. So definitely just proud of all the crew that's helped out, and I mean, obviously you guys being on the panel almost every single week. So it's definitely just been a good time, and definitely going to miss it. It's been a great semester.
Yeah, we're definitely wish you luck on whatever you do after this, and so glad I got to work with you for the season and a half that I did.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Sad we can't really talk on a better note for Philadelphia sports right now, but definitely it's been a great time. I do want to thank you guys for watching this episode. It's been a great time hosting this show these past 2 semesters. Don't forget to follow us on our social media, on Twitter and Instagram at SportsTalk LTV. And thanks for everything, and tune in next semester when Aiden's back hosting the show.